Hello. Today we're going to be on pages 28 and 29 in your workbook. This is lesson 4 in there, and we're going to just start right here with example 1. So today we're going to be learning about cube roots. So you learned about square roots the other day, which was two numbers that multiply to make another number. So like the square root of 16 is 4, because 4 times 4 equals 16. Today we're going to learn about cube roots and what those look like and what that means. So let's start by just looking at this first example. Leah's building a birdhouse for purple martins. They're birds that prefer cube-shaped birdhouses. And then what are the dimensions of each square piece of wood Leah needs to build the 216 cubic inch birdhouse? So the first thing we kind of got to realize is that what we know about the length, the width, and the height of the birdhouse. So something that in here in the story is this cube shaped. So we know that squares have all sides the same length. Cubes are the same. Okay, so they're just a bunch of squares put together. So all the length, the width, and the height also have to be the same. Okay, so that's where this idea of cube comes in. So we call it cube because it's cubed, so it's three-dimensional. So we have this picture here. We know the volume of it has to be 216 cubic inches, and we know that we have to take the length, the width, and the height times each other to get there. So that's what this equation is, 216, and then we have the three sides we're multiplying together. Since we have three s's, we can just write that as s cubed, okay? And we're gonna use that to figure out what each side needs to be. So over here it tells us to find the value of s because we need to find the cube root of 216. So since 216 is a perfect cube, we could just kind of run through numbers, and we could kind of guess and check is what it's called. So we could start with like 1. Well, that's going to be too low. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. 4 times 4 times 4, we're getting closer, is 64. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. So we would know that the cube root of 216 is going to be just 6. So the cube root of 216 is 6. But that's kind of it just takes too long to do, especially if your numbers are bigger. So there's something you can do on your calculator that makes it super easy. All you do is you push 3, so that's going to be like this 3 out in front of our square root sign, and then you push second, and then you push this up arrow. We call it the caret key, and it should look like this. It should be like a 3 with a little x and then that radical sign, the square root sign. And then you can just put whatever number you're trying to take the cube root of. So in this case we were doing 216, and we push equals, and it should equal 6, and it does. So once again, you push 3, second, and then this caret key or this up arrow. Okay, and like I was saying before, like let's do 27. So if I take the cube root of 27, it should be 3. So it should look just like that. All right. So down here, what I want you guys to do real quick is we have a sculpture that has a volume of 64 cubic feet, and then it says what is the length of each side or each edge of the cube. So I want you guys to go ahead. You can use your calculator. You could guess and check like I just did. Go ahead and figure this one out. So hopefully you were able to, I even ran through this one in my going to 6 cubed. Once we do this, we would realize that it's 4 times 4 times 4. So that means 4 cubed is equal to the cube root of 64. And then that just means that the cube root of 64 is 4. So the length of each edge on this one is 4. All right. Let's go ahead and let's move to the next side. So we've got some other examples here. we've already done this one, right? The cube root of 64 is 4. We just did that on our last one. Now this one, we have to really pay attention because you'll notice on the letter A, there's this little 3. Let me zoom in a little bit. There's this little 3 on the 64 right here, or on the square root sign. On this one, there's not. So this means square root, which means we're trying to find two numbers that multiply to make that number. Okay? So what happens is, if we have the square root of 100, the square root of 100 equals 10 because this square root cancels this squared, and we're just left with 10. So the square root of 100 equals 10. And that's kind of what happens over here too. When we take the cube root of 64, that cube root cancels the cube, so we're just left with 4. Alright? So why don't you guys go ahead, actually, let's just keep going. So the square root of 49, this squared cancels the square root, and we're left with just 7. So the square root of 49 equals 7. And then this one, the cube root, so the cube root cancels the cube, and so that means the cube root of 8 equals 2. And you can check all those on your calculator if you'd like. But there you go. Why don't you guys try A, B, C, and D. Pay attention to whether they are asking for cube root or square root, because they will be different answers depending on which one you do. Alright, now let's go to example 3. So you can see with the title here that we're going to be using square roots on this one. Let's figure out why. So Sean cuts one sheet of colorful poster paper to cover the bulletin board exactly. Okay, so he's putting it like kind of on his locker on this bulletin board. So he's trying to cover it, which means he's dealing with an area. An area is two-dimensional. Okay, it only has a length and a width. So when we're dealing with something that's two-dimensional, we're using square roots. When we deal with, like on the other page, when we were doing cube roots, that was three-dimensional, so we use cubes or cubed. Alright, so it says, what are the dimensions of the poster paper? So we know the area of this poster is 144 inches squared. So we know that that means the area is equal to side squared. So the area is 144, and that equals the side squared. So then all we have to do to cancel out this squared is take the square root of both sides. So we cancel this, and we would get the side equals, and this one looks a little different on your calculator. On this one, you don't have to push the 3 first, you just push second, and then this x squared button down here. And it'll just make like a normal square root sign, and then you can just put in the number you're looking for. So the square root of 144 equals 12. So that means that the length and width, the side of this square poster is 12 inches. Okay? So that means you will need a 12 by 12 inch sheet of paper to cover it. Alright? And then our last one here, Emily wants to buy a tablecloth to cover a square card table. She knows the tabletop has an area of 9 square feet. What are the minimum dimensions of the tablecloth Emily needs? So you guys go ahead and try that one, and we will be done there. Thanks for watching, guys.